Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good today, too. Thanks for asking. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. Today on The Voice of Yoga, we will talk about Columbus Day as an opportunity to explore regions beyond finite sense-level living. We will discuss the sun squaring the solar eclipse that occurred on July 12, 2018, 20 degrees Cancer, 41 minutes. Listen as we explain the divine idea behind the moon conjunct Uranus as a good time for new insights. Welcome to The Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and experience life beyond personal sense. So, Swami, let's talk about Columbus Day and discovery, being the title of our show, Discovery Beyond Sense Level Limits. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, to move beyond the testimony of your senses. And also, I think it requires a certain spirit of adventure to be able to want to step out of what is safe, familiar, comfortable, and known, and embark on the anxiety, the uncertainty of this unknown region of ourselves.
So let's talk about what we mean by discovery, and what does that have to do with any of the planetary alignments that's going on right now?
Yeah, discovery is something that you don't invent it. That it's something that's already there, and all you do is make that known to yourself. And so the presence of divine law is here, it's now. Divine idea is here now, but we have to make ourselves an avenue of awareness to receive it. We have to make our inner environment hospitable and compatible with it in order to open the channels of communication with it. The way that we're approaching things is a little bit different than the way we used to do it. And so the astrology creates an opportunity. But the planets really don't have any power. The only thing that has power is this divine law. The divine mind is the only power in this universe. And everything gets its appearance of power from it. And everything is contingent upon belief. And so normal astrology really becomes something that you believe in. Normal religion today is something we believe in. And the reason is because we believe in the appearance. We believe in what is visible and tangible. We believe in thought. We believe in what is invisible but tangible. And so our belief in these visible and tangible, invisible but tangible realms give them the appearance of power. But in truth, there is only one power, and it is the changeless state of being. And so astrologically, or any appearance can become an opportunity for us to pierce through it. Pierce through the limits of sense-level living.
And I was going to ask you more to break down that phrase, sense-level limits. Are we talking about senses as in the five senses, or senses as in, for example, like common sense, or what we perceive to be sensible?
Actually, we're talking about both. We're talking about matter, things that report in our five senses, but also the three modes of mortal thought that we must come out of. We must forsake human thinking, mortal thinking, for this divine knowing. Because it's a quantum leap when you're leaving what is finite, mortal, corporeal, for what is infinite, spiritual. Because what is perceptible on a human level isn't real. It is a thought or a concept about what is real. And the only reality is this divine idea, this spiritual fact of being. And the reason being is because it is the only thing that is self-existent. It is the only thing that has power in and of itself. And so for us to get out of sense-level living is an upgrade, because you're coming out of this false sense that really doesn't have any power of its own. And you now want to try and identify with what is real.
And so that's what you mean by discovery beyond these sense level limits. We have to go beyond what we think is real.
Right. Columbus Day being for discovery and encouragement to go beyond what is safe, familiar, comfortable, and known can become a good opportunity. What we had said in one earlier show, the mirror effect of consciousness, what is seemingly going outward in the external appearance is really going inward in consciousness. As you break this down and you look, we're trying to get out of the changing conditions of personal mentality. We're trying to get out of the changing conditions of world thought, cosmic consciousness, the collective consciousness, and we're trying to get into the changeless state of being. Because it is the changeless state of being that is real and self-existent, and it's absolute. So moving beyond the testimony of the five senses, which is considered this world, is my kingdom, the truth of being, and the testimony of the five spiritual senses is the goal here. And what we wanted to be able to do is walk in this kingdom of heaven on earth now.
And the five spiritual senses again, can you review that for us?
Yeah, that everything has the divine idea. So anything that appears like senses has a spiritual counterpart that is whole, complete, fulfilled. It's perfect. It's ever satisfying, and it's always successful. That's the spiritual truth. That's the spiritual fact.
If we use the material, what's going on the planets right now, isn't that a material aspect? And how does that help us grow spiritually?
Well, this is what we have been talking about, is that you must use the testimony of your senses to give you clues as to what it is that you're holding in consciousness. Say, for example, using your physical body, which is of the changing conditions of your personal mentality, to give you clues as to how am I thinking? But also you can use the movement of the planets, because the planets move. So again, they are a reflection of the changing conditions of mentality. Even the fixed stars move a little bit. But as we notice, as you move in levels outward, the movement becomes less and less detectable. That outer movement in the external appearance really requires this inner movement into ourselves. So as we're moving from animal magnetism, the instincts and appetites of a physical body, We're moving into human intelligence, reason, logic, and then we're moving into world thought, the collective consciousness. And then the final jump is from there, the quantum leap is when we move into divine mind. And divine mind is what is considered divine subjective egoism. It is this one life that is looking at itself, on itself, of itself, and in itself. And so that becomes the oneness, the one divine life, the absolute. And that's really where we want to try and get, because that transcends the limits of sense level living.
Well, we had mentioned in the summary that you're going to explain the divine idea behind the moon conjunct Uranus as a good time for new insights. Kind of sounds like you've been touching upon that in the show already about these new insights. Just wondering, is there anything else we can drill down further with that?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You just want to use the astrology as an appearance. And what surrounds us is within us. And the movement of these planets does create an opportunity that it is favorable for us to try and do something under a particular aspect. But all of this is dependent upon belief, and it's dependent upon a belief in time and space and matter. And these are all the things that we're just going to use to give us clues as to where am I in my development? What is my level of consciousness? Have I transcended these limits, or am I still stuck in the trap?
So if I'm looking to discover some new insights during this period, how do you suggest I go about doing that? What would be like my first step?
Well, you want to turn your attention inward, and in Kriya Yoga, what we call pratyahara, we want to withdraw our awareness from the five senses, and then to make your mind an avenue of awareness for the presence of divine mind, for the presence of this one divine spiritual life, which is invisible and intangible. So the best thing to abide in is to start out with is silence and stillness. And then you just wait and listen.
And then what are we listening for? Some people say they get this, like this nudge or this voice that tells them, but how do you know if it's really divine voice or if it's just a part of you that you think is divine, but it really isn't? How do we know the difference?
Yeah, that's a tough distinction to make, because the world mind, which is the shadow of divine mind, is the imitation. And I really like in Revelations when it talks about the three modes of mortal thought as the dragon and two beasts. And then it talks about the frogs that come out of the mouth of the dragon and the two beasts, which perform all of these wonderful tasks. And so mentally we can do these things, but there is a big difference between being individualized from world mind, world thought, and being individualized from divine mind. And the big difference is that world thought, mortal thought, is still under the law of karma, and you have a belief in mortality. Whereas divine mind is under the divine law of life, and you now rise into the understanding of immortality, the changeless state of being. And it's very different.
Well, we're going to pause right here to hear a word from our sponsors. So listeners, we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Theory 1, Human Development and the 8 Essential Stages of Kriya Yoga. This program is a comprehensive course that will help you get your arms around the science of Kriya Yoga. It provides a clear understanding of the goals and objectives behind yoga, along with the physics of spirituality. It includes the practices, supportive concepts of Kriya Yoga, and the process in human development, apotheosis, the process of the human becoming divine. A complete guide on how to become a human in the adult state. Get the light in your soul and experience the simplicity and joy of union with the divine. This course is available in live classes at the ashram or online with 8 videos or 4 CDs. Visit our website, www.ipdtransform.com, for more information. Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So, Swami, before we go any further, I have a question for you. So you've been talking about divine mind and world mind. In my earlier studies, I've come across the phrases Christ consciousness and cosmic consciousness. Are those the same thing? Is world mind cosmic consciousness, and is divine mind Christ consciousness?
Well, to answer your question, they can be, but at the same time, they might not be. And again, it all depends upon what it is that you identify with the term. It's like the word God. God can mean anything to anyone. And that's why we've been talking about it's really important to be able to test your terminology. Cosmic consciousness really can be world thought. It can be the collective consciousness. Christ consciousness can be world thought. But it can be Christ consciousness. It could be divine mind. It's all going to depend upon the appearances, the fruits, what it is that it is manifesting in your experience.
So you say we have to step out of the appearance of time and space into the eternal now. So what does that look like when we do that?
Right. That's when you know that you are spirit, that you are an eternal spiritual being. You let go of the reflection and the image and likeness, and you start to identify with the original. Right? We must know ourselves in the way that we are known, which is spirit. We were created in the image and likeness of the divine, which was spirit. And everything that appears in this universe is backed by the divine idea. Everything is the reflection of the one divine mind. But the key is not to be fooled or identify with the reflection. You want to identify with the light, the one divine mind.
And you talked earlier about being individualized by the divine mind. So what's the benefit there?
You make the shift from being individualized by mortal mind to being individualized by divine mind. And that's what we were talking about, that you come out of the belief in matter, you come out of the belief in mortality, and you now understand that you are an eternal spiritual being. In spirit, in truth, there is no sin, sickness, suffering, lack, limitation. There's really no success, failure, bad, good, or death. We get there by knowing spirit is all and letting it express itself through us. And spirit is absolute goodness. It's very different than the goodness that we think we know. It's absolute love. It's not something that can be love one day and hate another day. We're out of the changing conditions of personal mentality. We're out of the changing conditions of mentality into the realms of spiritual truth, which is absolute life, eternal life. And there isn't any power anywhere that can interfere with that.
So I know you said this before, that knowing spirit is all, and to let it express itself through us. How do we know that that's what's happening? Is that also by the fruits?
That's exactly how we do. We know it by the fruits, but how do we do it is by forsaking human thinking, which really means that we have to let go of the material moorings, our beliefs, our concepts, our theories, all the human trying and thinking and striving that we do on a human level, and we forsake that for divine knowing. In the framework of this divine knowing, we just make our mind an avenue of awareness for this invisible, intangible presence, spirit, and we let it guide us. And just like you were saying, you listen for this still small voice. You listen for something that is going to communicate with you on a way that you're not familiar with, but you're going to know that it's the truth, and then it will start to reveal itself in the appearance. So say, for example, if you are dealing with symptoms in your body, that your knowing of this truth must have an effect on those symptoms. So what was appearing as bad health must now appear as good health, because all the good, beautiful, and true attributes belong to the divine.
I'd like to get back to talking about what you had mentioned earlier about the aspects of what's happening around Columbus Day. So, can we just spend a little bit of time maybe breaking that down for us?
Well, today, Monday, Mercury sextiles Saturn, which is a good time for new thoughts on collective purpose. Sun squares Pluto, may bring tension to transform self-expression. Moon is conjunct Uranus, which is a good time for new insights, which we had said in the opening. Also, the moon is void, of course, from midnight to 12 p.m., 24 minutes today. And productivity may pick up in the early afternoon today. But also there's a keynote for that the sun is in a separating square from the solar eclipse of July 12th, 2018, which you had mentioned in the opening, at 20 degrees Cancer. And the sun is a trigger to watch for any of these events, and you look for incidents that may connect you to this eclipse point. The eclipse cycle is a 2-year, 2-month, and 28-day cycle that has a lot to do with the revelation of spiritual truth to human consciousness. And so the eclipse point was a beginning.
You had mentioned earlier that our physical appearance is the reflection of the divine idea. So if that's the case, what would be the divine idea of a solar eclipse?
Yeah, the divine idea is the universal principle behind every appearance. It is the one constant, self-existent life force of this universe, the changeless state of being. And the movement of celestial bodies is a representation of the changing conditions of a world, cosmic, or a collective mentality. Individual experience is a representation of the changing conditions of the personal mentality. And so having knowledge of how all of this is happening in an actual event or circumstance or situation is somewhat helpful. But the thing you want to really pierce through is the things that are visible and tangible, the testimony of your senses, and forsake that mortal thinking for the divine knowing. Independent of what it is that seems to be changing, the truth of being is changeless. It's perfect, it's whole, it's harmonious, and it's eternal.
So I want to get back to talking about reflections and appearances. So I understand that my outward appearance is a reflection of what's going on in my mind. Now, that would be my personal mind, right? My mortal mind. So how do I know if my physical appearance is reflecting the divine mind?
Right, because the divine mind is perfect. So if your physical appearance is perfect, what is meant by that, the term perfect, is whole, complete, fulfilled, then you're in the truth of being, or chances are you're in the truth of being. The appearance isn't real, but what we're trying to do is connect the dots. But if you find any imperfections, if you find defect, if you find fault with your external physical appearance, then there's a clue that there is something interfering with the perfection of being between your experience and this one divine mind, because we know spirit is perfect. And so where the change takes place is in how we're thinking.
Well, my question to you is that wouldn't that defect, wouldn't that be a perception of the individual?
Right. And also it could be supported by world thought, world mind, because a lot of us are individualized by the world mind, and world thought is really disguised as my thought. And so it's quite complicated in how it doesn't really work in our favor. The one-size-fits-all solution to it is to really stop thinking humanly, stop trying, stop believing, and to know this truth, to know that you are perfect. You are the expression of an indestructible principle. And to let human thinking get out of the way and let that one divine light shine through your consciousness until it reveals the perfection of being.
Now, is it helpful for us to, say, make a declaration every day or throughout the day? You know, I read something the other day, or something like, now I am the light. Now I am the Christ. I mean, is that something that helps us to remind us that we have to think and act and to behave, I guess, in lack of a better word, in a certain way?
Yeah, because to me, that's what I think the Bible, when it talks about feeding the sheep, that actually feeding your human thought with these divine aspirations helps make our thought buoyant. It lifts our thought out of the material moorings, out of all of the false concepts, beliefs, and theories that most of us have been limited by, and supported by the testimony of our senses, because for us today, seeing is believing. As we start to unbox this and you start to move out of those false concepts and beliefs and you abide in the truth, then it will start to change the appearance. But it's not just denial. And by working with these affirmations, with repetition comes absorption until it becomes your default mode of thinking. And your mind is now just a continuous avenue of awareness for divine mind.
All right, well, you've given us a lot to work with, but I think we have to start closing down our show for today. So listeners, be sure to visit the website, www.ipdtransform.com. And then you'll see 3/4 of the way down on the homepage a list under Swami Says recent posts. You'll be able to access a lot of the other Blog Talk Radio shows there. And don't forget to click on Online Classes tab to sign in for Swami's free webinars Wednesdays at noon. Swami, any final thoughts about today's program?
Well, I would like to encourage everybody to discover something real and true for themselves and forsake all of their 5 sense limits. And with that, I'll recommend that we use these new insights to stay in the spirit of truth. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton along with Swami Jayananda. We'll be signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.